Laura, so great to have you on the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Jared. Very happy to be here.
I don't usually have the giggles, but I feel like I'm going to laugh this whole episode, and I'm trying not to. My face is stuck like this right now.
I got the
Uh,
cheek hurts already, Jared.
yeah, I'm feeling it. Well, I'm excited to have you. We ran into each other at Money 2020.
Mhm.
Glad to actually have a more full conversation. We chatted for a little bit, but would love to kind of kick things off for those that are in our audience that are just meeting you for the first time.
Mhm.
Tell them a little bit about yourself and then about Stratify. Stratify.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I am the co-founder and CEO of Stratyfy. We founded the company now almost 8 years ago. Prior to starting Stratyfy, I spent over a decade at JP Morgan Chase in lending and risk roles. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, so I'd always had the hopes and dreams of starting something, and a number of things that happened both professionally and personally led to me meeting my co-founder and then starting Stratyfy back in May of 2017. At Stratify, we help financial institutions make better decisions across credit, fraud, and compliance. And when we say better, we mean more accurate and therefore more profitable, more efficient, so driving down the costs associated with these decisions, and also fair. So we're very focused on how can you remove unfair biases from these really important decisions that impact people's lives.
As it relates to the company,
Yeah.
which specific like financial institutions, like what type do you primarily work with?
So we're primarily working with larger community banks and regional banks. Those are our primary customers. We also work with some fintechs, which wouldn't be surprising either, and also some of the very large banks in the U.S. are also our customers. But we see a ton of opportunity to leverage better technology for those banks in that kind of large, small to middle category, which we classify as assets between 5 billion and 50 billion.
Small numbers.
Yeah, exactly. All in the financial
Yeah,
institution.
yeah, and yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Big, small, right?
yeah, the big small. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good the big small.
Yeah.
Um, really cool. Well, from your perspective, Laura, like I'd love to hear like why isn't our financial system already more inclusive
Yeah.
than it is today?
Yeah, so many reasons, unfortunately, and reasons that if we don't kind of interject right now and stop things, the snowball's gonna roll forward further down the hill. So our financial system, unfortunately, was not built upon practices of inclusivity in any way, shape, or form. It was built actually a lot around excluding certain people from the system and excluding access to certain people from the system. Of course, redlining is the primary example that everybody draws to, the practice of purposely not granting loans, particularly home loans, to certain communities that were filled with more or less represented groups. So that practice dates back, you know, 70 years now, 80 years. And unfortunately, the remnants of those practices, which are now highly illegal, are still baked into our financial system. And that also means that it's baked into the data that our financial system has generated and continues to generate. That's why I say if we don't take proactive actions now, we're going to just continue with the use of technology to reinforce biases of the past and present to some extent, right? Not just the past, it's happening still today.
Now, when you look at like trends in the space today, are there any particular trends that you anticipate will continue or arise for the rest of 2025 when it
Mhm.
comes to I'm going to say it, but when it comes to finance and AI?
Yeah. So the ships leaving the station, or trains leaving the station is the right analogy. and and it's you have to get on board, right? That's the trend that's not going to stop. There's a ton of hype around AI right now, a lot of which is driven by the advancements in generative AI, a very exciting subfield of AI that still is in its very, very, very early stages, particularly with adoption in financial services. As far as 2025 is related, I would expect progress in how financial institutions are using GenAI, but I think it will continue to be in these kind of use cases that are safer. AI agents, AI assistants that help search through a lot of information and provide recommendations. It's not going to get into these kind of more high value, high risk use cases yet. But I think one of the exhausts off of Gen AI is that we're going to see more, as I often jokingly call it, old school AI, which is machine learning. We're going to see more adoption there. In machine learning, the value, the benefit, the use cases, it's been proven out. It's not, brand new technology that is still in the, call it, testing phases, like a lot of what's going on in Gen AI is. So that movement in the more old school stuff, the machine learning stuff, I think is going to accelerate very meaningfully this year, almost like off of the exhaust of Gen AI and the buzz around Gen AI.
Do you think we'll see particular areas that were hesitant to share certain data be more open to sharing data because of what they can now do with that information? Like with what AI allows them, how it allows.
Users, you mean end users and consumers?
Yeah, and with end users, correct.
Yes and no. So my view on this is that if you give a consumer a reason to provide the information, and you are transparent with that consumer about what you're going to do with the information and how that information is being used, then yes, absolutely, Jared. I think if you're just saying, hey, throw a bunch of more information about yourself into this soup, this box, and maybe it'll help you, who knows, maybe it'll hurt you. I think we're going to continue to see a ton of skepticism there as consumers continue to be, I think, rightly apprehensive about how their data, especially more kind of private personal data, is being used by the machine, right? Or the AI, right? So we have to, in order to, I would say, get that trust from the consumer, we have to give that trust back in the form of visibility, transparency, control around how that data is being utilized.
Now, let's kind of shift focus a little bit to
Yeah.
credit decisioning.
Mhm.
How do you expect credit decisioning and lending to evolve at these financial institutions over the next year and beyond that?
Yeah. I think that over the next year, we're going to have certain institutions that stay very focused on the types of customers they've served historically. Maybe that's prime, super prime customers, for example, if we want to judge by FICO score or Vantage score. Certain institutions are going to stay focused there. It's the place they're comfortable. It's the place that they know, feel like they know what to expect. It's their bread and butter. They'll stay there. And then I think we're going to have institutions that realize and recognize that there's a ton of opportunity for them in providing fairly priced credit products to people that historically have not been afforded those opportunities. The easiest way to classify those people, and small businesses, I should say as well, is by, again, credit score. So think of this as the subprime, near prime scores. I think what we're going to have is certain institutions that recognize there's a ton of opportunity for them to grow their customer base by serving those individuals and those businesses better. And those institutions will recognize that that becomes a competitive edge for them in acquiring new customers, in growing those relationships, and acquiring the trust. But I think it's going to be like the tale almost of two FIs. And we're very focused on helping the latter group, find ways to profitably service those borrowers.
Do you think we'll continue to see a rise in automation and AI at banks, but also, like, do you think that pace will speed up now as well?
Banks have guardrails they've put in place to ensure that as they're bringing in new technology, they're doing so in a responsible way. So I don't think we're at a situation where all of a sudden everything's going to just kind of get out of control because pace of adoption speeds up. Yes, pace of adoption will speed up, but financial institutions, for good reasons, are heavily regulated. Even in the current environment, are heavily regulated. And that regulation puts, in the best way, puts guardrails around what can be done so that things don't go haywire. So I think that will continue. I think the institutions that win will be the ones that figure out how to incorporate AI, broadly speaking, so whether it's old school or new school, into their operations as opposed to have it as this like separate thing. And we're seeing that in the market right now in so many ways, right? There are certain institutions that are trying to make every part of their business conversant and capable with AI tools. And then there are other institutions that are creating an AI center of excellence or a separate dedicated AI group. My personal view, winning strategy, incorporate it in. It's one of my colleagues brought this up the other day, and I think it's a perfect example. Folks used to have these cloud centers of excellence, or financial institutions used to have these cloud centers of excellence or cloud focused groups. And then they recognized that that tech is just another technology that needs to be integrated into every line of business and how every line of business thinks of problems. The institutions that are able to master that, those are the FIs that are gonna win in this kind of next wave.
Yeah, I think as it relates to AI, in the near future, we'll stop referring to this AI feature, this AI into
Yeah.
it'll just be like this is part of what every product is going to need to just like cloud was, exactly.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. And it shouldn't be I'd like to see the conversation shift away from and we have this happen all the time. How are you using AI? Right? Or let's find a way to use AI. I think it's the wrong way to frame the problem. Everything should continue to be framed in the voice of the problem of the business. What is the pain point we're trying to solve for ourselves internally or for our customers? And then AI is one of the many tools within your toolkit to solve it. And different forms of AI solve those problems in different ways and with different, rewards and potentially risks associated with them. So it's just another technology.
So that being said, though, how can these financial institutions, particularly the smaller ones,
Yeah.
how can they prepare though for a wider adoption of AI and machine learning technologies? Because some of them are still probably slower to adopt than
Oh,
their counterparts, right? So what advice do you have for them?
so a few things. You're absolutely right. Certain ones are slower to adopt. Certain ones are faster, and a lot of that to me comes down to the leadership of the organization and what the directive is from the top of the organization. I think that that top of the organization needs to make it very clear that it's a priority for the organization to be evaluating this technology again as a way to solve problems. That's a priority for the organization, that the organization's willing to spend some money on that. They're willing to spend some time on that, to iterate on that. They're willing to give their people some air cover on that, right? The last thing you want if you're trying to inspire innovation at your organization, the last thing you want is for people to be scared of change, which many folks in financial institutions are, right? So you have to empower them to say, hey, it's okay to test and iterate and learn. That has to come from the top of the organization. And then the other thing I think is really important is investing in making your teams AI literate. They don't have to be, sitting writing lines of code or using one of the AI tools to write lines of code, but they should understand what tools and technologies are out there, and they should hopefully feel excited by these and not intimidated. That's the goal.
Before we start to wrap up here, Laura, would love to just kind of hear what's next for Stratify. Are there any exciting partnerships or
Mm.
developments you can share with us today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a few things that we're really excited about. One is with an existing partnership that we've had in place for now about 18 months, and that's with an organization called Underwriting for Racial Justice. We're the tech provider for their pilot program. As part of this pilot program, we're working with lenders across the country, all focused on ways that they can provide greater access within their communities. And we have been recommending changes to their credit decisioning strategy. Those recommendations have now been put in practice, and we're going to start to see some results and publicize those results. So that's something coming up that I'm really excited about, and definitely will share with you, Jared, and others. And then the other thing I'm really excited about is a few big partnerships and customers that we're in the final stages with. One is a major core provider, or we will be integrating our technology into their LOS and providing, I think, a really awesome value prop to their customers. And another is with a major bank where we're helping them across their fair lending testing and search for less discriminatory alternatives. So these are all
Awesome.
at the very, very tip for Stratify right now that we're really pumped about.
Excited for you. Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
keep me up to date. Would love to, share that news and really exciting for you and the team. I have one more question for you before we wrap up here
Yeah.
that you would never expect in a million years.
I can't wait.
If Stratify had a theme song, what would it be? And can you sing it right now? I'm just kidding. That's it. We're all done.
Yeah. I love
I'm
it.
not going to ask you that. But
You were gonna ask for my walkout or pump up song.
okay, what would be your walkout or pump up
Goes
song?
back to college for me. Lose Yourself by Eminem.
Good
Like,
choice.
you ever need to really get yourself jazzed up for an important call or meeting? It's a good one.
Just that. Dun, 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 dun,
100%.
dun, dun. Yeah,
just
just
like
you hear that.
gets it going.
You just. Well, I was gonna say you fear. I was just gonna say
Start doing
you feel
this,
the
Jared. You go.
you feel the hairs on your head stick up, and then I was like, well, wait a second here. That's not the case. Laura, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Look forward to future conversations, and hopefully we'll see you soon. But best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Jared. Appreciate you having me.